the level 20 dungeon that I tried to run like 10 times and I still couldn't clear it because there was like no coordination at all. So, Throne and Liberty. I didn't really expect to make this video when I first jumped into Throne and Liberty, but let me tell you, this game actually surprised me. I thought I would probably just play for a few hours, see what's what, and probably just move on. But here I am, over 15 hours into the game, and I'm actually having some fun. Who would have thought? So let's talk about this MMO and why I think it's surprisingly good and why maybe it may be worth you checking this game out. Now look, I am a new player and I never really followed this game. Like I remember, I think it was during the KR beta when, the game was pretty much like autoplay and more of like a mobile experience. And I just kind of stopped following the game after that. But let me tell you, they did a 180 with this game and the developers are actually listening and implementing feedback. Yeah, let me say that again. The developers took feedback from multiple regions and actually implemented that feedback into their game, and it's surprisingly good. Now look, things can change in a split second, but at least as of right now, I think you should definitely check this game out, especially, since it is free to play. So I'm going to talk about my experience so far with this game as a new player. So let's jump in. All right, I'll be honest, the graphics caught my attention right away, right? The world in Throne and Liberty is just straight up beautiful, right? You got these massive castles in the distance. You have mountains for days, leaves just blowing off the trees. It's like a fantasy movie that just like came to life. Like, bro, it's kind of insane. Like, this is definitely next gen graphics. Like BDO's graphics are great, but I don't know. Throne and Liberty is just crisp. Like there's no like weird like graphical pop-ins like BDO has. I mean, like right off the bat with the opening scene when that huge whale just goes by you, it's pretty epic. It's really epic. And the game, it just runs buttery smooth. Like even when you're in like busier areas, which is just a massive plus. There's so many players on your screen and it's smooth. And I've watched some like crazy siege videos with like hundreds of people on the screen and it just does not lag. So 10 out of 10 with its graphics and performance. So let's talk about the leveling, right? This is where I thought I would lose interest because let's be real, most MMOs have a really boring leveling up process that just feels like a chore. But, Throne and Liberty feels a little bit different. Like I'm actually enjoying the main quest line, which I guess if you're coming from BDO, that's not really that hard at all anyway. But essentially, you do the main quest line and you may hit a point where you need like 1 or 2 levels before you can continue that main storyline, which you can do like other activities like contracts or exploration quest to get those couple levels. But there's plenty of epic cinematics, throughout the storyline. And you're not just mindlessly killing mobs or like doing fetch quests, right? There's actual variety, right? There's some quests that involve like jumping puzzles and like solving different things. I mean, nothing game changing, right? But at least it adds some type of variety while you're exploring the world. So I think the progression, so far it feels natural. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. You're constantly unlocking new abilities too that make the combat a little bit more interesting, which, just keeps you wanting to level up. All right, let's talk about server stability. This is usually where MMOs kind of start falling apart, especially at launch. But man, I was shocked at how stable things were done in Throne and Liberty. Like even like during the peak times, right? The servers just held up. Like I haven't experienced any major lag or server crashes. And for a game that's just packed with massive amount of players, right? It's just a huge W. I mean, when you think of a MMO launch, granted, I know it's like early access. But when you think of an MMO launch, right, you expect some issues. But, me personally, I haven't had any issues at all. Now, I have seen some posts where people have had some server crashes and whatnot, but like I said, for me, no issues. Also, there is crossplay. So consoles can play with PC or vice versa, which is actually really cool. And it seems that's also really smooth. So I'm sure people who play BDO on console may actually like this game because, you can play with your friends on PC and not have a, lack in content or performance issues. Now, combat, right? This is where a lot of MMOs will either make it or break it. Now, I'm coming from BDO being my main game, which obviously it's known for its combat. And of course, Throne and Liberty does not even come close to BDO's combat, but Throne and Liberty's combat is not bad. And some of the skills do have some movement. So it's not like you're being completely static, right? And the combat, it just works. It just works well. And I think because of the tab target system, it just allows for that better, performance, especially when there's so many players on the screen. There is a dodge mechanic, right, that you can do to like evade attacks. There's also a block mechanic. So if you time that up perfectly, when something hits you, you can stun that target, which actually, feels pretty rewarding, right? And they also did just recently release skill specializations, which also significantly changes the combat, right? Because you can change certain skills like decreasing the cooldown or changing a skill that's a single target attack to be more of a AoE attack. So you really have a lot of like customization, based on kind of your play style. So here's a big question. Can you enjoy Throne and Liberty as a solo player, or do you need a group / like being in a guild? And I think that's an important question, especially for a lot of people, especially for me, since, I am coming from BDO where you can play the game for the most part solo, which for me has always been a win because my schedule is just always crazy. And like, I feel like I never really have a set schedule. So it's just hard to always schedule something with a guild. So being able to play solo is just nice for that flexibility. On the flip side though, I think, being part of a guild or having a group to play with is also very important because, it keeps people engaged and it just makes the whole MMO experience just more rewarding, right? So I think having both aspects is important for a game to allow for that different variety of gaming preferences for different people. So with Throne and Liberty, I've been able to play this game solo without a guild, and I haven't had any issues during the leveling up process so far. However, I will say that this game highly encourages you to be a part of a guild, which, makes sense, right? Because this is a PvP game with large scale battles, right? But here's the catch on why you really need to be a part of a guild. A good guild is because your gear and your character progression at the end game is somewhat tied to that group play, right? So, getting gear comes from those high level dungeons, which you most likely will need a decent group to run those with. And there's also the world bosses, which again, being a part of a top guild will give you better access to those gear pieces, right? But I think, for the most part, most of the gear will come from the dungeons, which you can do a party finder for, but the issue is that you'll get put with random people who don't know what they're doing. For instance, the level 20 dungeon that I tried to run like 10 times and I still couldn't clear it because there was like no coordination at all. So yeah, that was fun. So can you play this game solo? Yes, to an extent. But I think maybe just joining like just a casual guild, like with no Discord, is possible. And you can still get some rewards from that. But I think overall, you'll be missing out if you're not a part of an active guild. Now, my take on that may change as I continue to level up and continue to gear up. So one thing that really stood out to me kind of as a new player in Throne and Liberty is like the morph system, right? So this game doesn't have like your traditional mounts, but instead you morph into an animal which can be, different types depending on the terrain. So, if you're in the air, you'll transform into like a flying animal. Like for me, or at least a starting player, you'll transform into like an eagle. If you're in the water, right, you'll turn into something that swims. It's just a really cool mechanic that makes kind of traveling across the world just a better experience, and it's just done very well. Like it's not clunky. It's really smooth, right? And it adapts to whatever like you need in the moment, right? Which is just super convenient. So, the morph system just feels like a really nice touch to the game that just adds to the overall immersion without like feeling like gimmicky. So PvE and PvP content to look forward to in this game can include dungeons such as co-op instant dungeons or open world dungeons where daytime there's no PvP, right? And then during the nighttime, the PvP is activated. There is also secret dungeons, right? Which is like a 1v1 duel style dungeon. And, there are different floors, and each floor has its own kind of difficulty, right? So as you go down the floor, it becomes a little bit more challenging. There are dynamic open world events that either have like only PvE style of content or only PvP style of content, or maybe a mixture of both. There are massive castle sieges, guild versus guild battles. You have 3v3 arenas, and there's just a lot of other content, in this game. Life skills. So there's only a few life skills like fishing and cooking. So if you're a hardcore life skiller, especially coming from like BDO, then this game really isn't for you. So what's the verdict on this game? Yeah, after spending so far 15 hours into this game, into Throne and Liberty, it really has exceeded my expectations, right? The graphics are amazing. The leveling process feels good. The servers have been very stable. And, the combat is not bad. It's not better than BDO's, but it's not bad. I do have some concerns on like the longevity of this game, right? With its mechanics and pay to win aspect, but I probably will save that for like another video. But at least as of right now, at the beginning stages as a new player, I'm having a lot of fun. And, if you're on the fence about maybe trying this game out, I'd say go for it, right? You might be as surprised as I was. And, you really have nothing to lose because it is free to play, right? But if you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. I plan on doing another review of this game, once I get to the max level and actually kind of experience the end game. So stay tuned for that. But hey, I will see you in the next one. Peace.
Sunsets on black desert sky. It's just you and I.